Okay, let's just jump right in. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to uncover an incredibly uncomfortable truth. You see, we've all been taught that building wealth is basically just a math problem, right? Like, if you just get the spreadsheet to balance out, boom, you'll be rich. But the reality? The reality is entirely different. Building wealth is actually this deeply ingrained psychological battlefield. Honestly, your relationship with money was probably decided before you even earned your very first dollar. So today, we're going to break down the hidden psychology that controls literally every financial decision you make, using some incredibly clear evidence from our source material.
Let's start by looking at two very different guys. First up, we have Styx. Now, Styx is your quintessential regular guy. He works a totally normal job, drives an old car, lives in a modest little apartment, and just generally lives a life most people wouldn't even look twice at. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have Richard Fuzone. Richard is this highly educated Wall Street executive. We're talking a Harvard graduate who worked at Merrill Lynch and earned literal millions over the course of a super impressive career. So looking at those two totally opposite profiles, who do you think retires a millionaire and who ends up dying bankrupt? I mean, it seems super obvious, doesn't it? But get this, despite his massive, massive income advantage, it was Styx, the regular guy, who quietly built incredible wealth over his lifetime. And Richard, the big Wall Street executive, he ended up losing absolutely everything and actually declaring bankruptcy. And this brilliantly illustrates our core premise for today. Personal finance is driven by hidden, incredibly powerful psychological forces, not just the size of your paycheck. Which brings us right to Section 1, the invisible money script. So what is an invisible script? Basically, it's the unconscious psychological programming that we inherit. Think about it. Before you even truly understood what money was, your financial habits were already being programmed into you. Maybe it was watching your parents stressed out, fighting over bills at the kitchen table, or just dealing with that constant, grinding fear of scarcity. You didn't write this script, and you definitely didn't choose it, but I promise you, it is currently running in the background of your mind, dictating how you view every single dollar you touch. So how do these invisible scripts actually play out in the real world? Well, say you grew up poor. Your invisible script might literally scream at you to spend your money the second you get it, because scarcity taught your brain that money just disappears anyway, so you'd better use it while you have it. On the flip side, if you grew up wealthy, your script might push you to take completely insane financial risks, mainly because you've never truly experienced the fear of financial ruin. And if your parents fought about money all the time, you might just avoid the topic entirely, even when you're in debt and desperately need help. We all love to think we're making rational, conscious decisions every day, when in reality, we're often just acting out decades-old programming. All right, let's move right along to Section 2, the comparison trap. Just take a look at the classic American home for a second. Back in the 1950s, your average home was a pretty modest 900 square feet. Fast forward to today, and that average home has absolutely ballooned to 2,600 square feet. We have accumulated almost 3 times the amount of physical living space in just a couple of generations. Which obviously begs the question, are we 3 times happier? And the data says absolutely not. In fact, despite having triple the space for all our stuff, as a society we are more stressed or way more anxious, and we are drowning in far more debt than at any other point in history. The reason for this collective unhappiness basically comes down to something called the hedonic treadmill or the comparison trap. See, your brain is weird. It's wired in a way that never actually compares your current success to your past self. Instead, your reference point is constantly shifting outward to match the people around you. So you get a promotion and a nice raise, and for about 2 weeks, you feel absolutely amazing, like you're on top of the world. But then your coworker pulls into the parking lot in a brand new Tesla, and suddenly your totally reliable Honda feels completely inadequate. And that raise that felt like true freedom just days ago instantly makes you feel broke. Enough is a constantly moving target, and if you don't intentionally anchor it, you're going to be running on that treadmill forever. That leads us nicely into Section 3, the illusion of control. Okay, it's time to shatter this comfortable little lie we tell ourselves, that we are these fully rational economic actors, totally in control of our daily financial choices. The truth is, your environment is actively manipulating you. Take restaurant menus, for example. They'll purposefully place a massive $40 steak right at the very top. Why? Because it anchors your brain, making that $28 chicken dish right underneath it look like a brilliant, rational bargain. Or look at the stock market. We pretend it's this beacon of rational math, but it's actually driven by pure, raw emotion, specifically fear and greed, which makes people buy at the absolute top when everyone's euphoric and sell at the very bottom out of sheer panic. Your emotional brain is reacting in milliseconds to external triggers all day long. And honestly,
Nowhere is this illusion of control more obvious than with credit cards. Studies highlighted in our source materials show something mind-blowing. Using credit cards actually causes people to spend 50 to 100% more than they would if they were handing over physical cash. Think about that. Swiping a little piece of plastic or just tapping your phone makes the transaction entirely abstract. It actively removes the neurological pain of losing your money, which allows you to seamlessly spend double without even feeling a pinch.
Let's shift gears to section 4, your stranger future self. So why is it so incredibly hard for us to save for retirement? It turns out there's an actual biological reason for our financial blind spot. When researchers put people into MRI machines and scan their brains as they think about their future selves, say picturing themselves at 65 or 70, the brain registers it exactly the same as if they were thinking about a random stranger walking down the street. Literally, your brain perceives future you as someone else entirely. And when you look at it that way, it's completely understandable why it's so incredibly hard to sacrifice your current pleasure, like a vacation or a nice dinner today, for a total stranger decades from now. But man, this biological blind spot is absolutely devastating when you consider the math of compound interest. Picture an investor who starts at age 25. They put in $500 a month for just 10 years, and then they stop completely, never invest another dime. Now picture a second investor who starts late, at age 35, putting in that exact same $500 a month, but they have to do it for 30 entire years. Because of the sheer compounding power of time, the person who invested early for just a single decade actually ends up with far more money at retirement. It's literally just math, right? But our brains struggle so hard to grasp it because the massive reward of compound interest is decades away, while the pain of sacrificing that $500 is happening right now, today. The people who actually build wealth aren't necessarily smarter than you or me. They've simply figured out psychological tricks, like literally writing letters to their future selves, to make that stranger in the future feel like someone worth caring about right now. This takes us into section 5, which is perhaps the darkest part of our financial psychology: money as identity magnifier. I really want you to let this quote sink in for a second. Money can't fix identity problems, it just exposes them in high definition. Listen, if you are deeply insecure, or if you grew up feeling invisible or getting bullied, money doesn't magically cure that feeling, not at all. Instead, money simply becomes a heavy weapon. You buy the flashy luxury car not because you genuinely appreciate the German engineering, but because you desperately need people to look at you differently. You use money to force respect from society. And the absolute tragedy here is that an internal feeling of worthlessness will never, ever be solved by external spending, period. I don't care how high your credit limit goes, it just doesn't work. Which brings us to our final core concept for this explainer, section 6, the true meaning of wealth. Every day, we are constantly bombarded by society's scoreboard, right? The massive houses, the luxury cars, the designer brands you see plastered all over Instagram. And the ultimate tragedy is spending your entire brief life chasing that scoreboard to solve internal problems that cash literally cannot fix. But true wealth? True wealth is entirely different. Remember Styx, our regular guy from the beginning of this explainer? He figured out early on that money is simply a tool. That's it. And the less money you bleed trying to maintain some fake, incredibly stressful image for society, the more capital you actually get to keep. And what do you buy with it? You buy time, you buy relationships, you buy peace. You get to buy the only thing that actually matters in this life, your freedom. So here's what I want to leave you with today, a really powerful question. Is this moving me toward freedom or keeping me trapped? I seriously challenge you to ask yourself this exact question before you spend a single dollar next week. Give it a try. Because shifting your mindset away from society's relentless, exhausting scoreboard and towards purchasing your own freedom, that changes absolutely everything about your financial future.